All right, so everyone wanted to deep dive into tonight's NBA games. And wow, there's a lot to talk about. We're going to go over five of the biggest matchups, focusing on like the standout moments and some of the stats that might surprise you. Think of it as your like cheat sheet to becoming an NBA expert overnight.
Yeah, and what's cool is how much variety we saw tonight. We had blowouts,
Yeah.
nail biters, and even some underdog stories. Really shows how competitive the league is right now. Anyone can win.
Yeah, for sure. Let's start with the Suns just destroying the Warriors 130 to 105. I mean, this wasn't just a win. It felt like they were sending a message.
Yeah, and Devin Booker was the one leading the charge. He had 35 points, but it was the way he was scoring. He was so efficient, hitting those tough shots, and, just getting to his spots so easily. He just kirked anyone the Warriors tried to put on him.
Yeah, it felt like the Warriors just had no response.
Yeah.
That second half was rough. They were outscored 68 to 45. What happened there?
It was Chris Paul. Yeah. He had 12 assists, but that doesn't tell the whole story. He was controlling the pace, picking apart the Warriors' defense, creating open looks for everyone on the Suns. It was a masterclass in point guard play.
Yeah, you got to give him credit for that one. Okay, so the Suns were in top form, but meanwhile over in Boston, things were a little more tense. Pelicans and Celtics, final score of 118 to 116. I bet you were on the edge of your seat for that one.
Oh, absolutely. Jason Tatum was unbelievable. 42 points, 10 rebounds. But it was more than just the stats. It was when he scored. Big shots down the stretch, clutch free throws. He basically carried the Celtics to victory.
Yeah, he's got that clutch gene for sure. Brandon Ingram put up a good fight for the Pelicans, though. 30 points for him. But even with that, they just couldn't get the win.
Yeah, the Celtics just locked down on defense in those final minutes. Forced turnovers, challenged every shot. And that defensive intensity was the difference. They turned defense into offense, and that's how they won.
Yeah, those last few minutes can make or break a game. All right, now, for a real shocker. The Spurs beat the Bucks 144 to 118. I mean, come on.
Yeah. Well, we have to put that into context. The Bucks were missing some key players because of injuries. So they weren't at full strength.
Ah, I see. So the Spurs saw an opportunity and they took it. Keldon Johnson was the star of the show for them. With 28 points, NBA fans might want to keep an eye on him.
For sure. And that's what makes this game so interesting. The Spurs, they're always underestimated, but they played so efficiently. Devin Vassell played great too. 22 points and 8 assists. They took advantage of the Bucks' weaknesses and played smart team basketball.
Smart basketball, that's what wins games. Okay, buckle up, because Game 4 was a wild ride. Sixers versus Nuggets down to the wire, 137 to 134. Talk about a battle.
Yeah, Nikola Jokic had another triple-double. 29 points, 15 rebounds, 12 assists. This guy does it all. He was in control of the game on both ends of the court.
Yeah, he's a beast. Joel Embiid tried to match him, though. He had 38 points for the Sixers, but even that wasn't enough to stop Jokic. What was it like in those last few seconds?
Intense. Jamal Murray hit the game winner, a clutch three-pointer with just seconds left. Ice in his veins. And this wasn't just luck. He was hitting tough shots all night. Murray's performance was just as important as Jokic's.
Yeah, they work so well together. And lastly, we have the Bulls cruising past the Raptors, 122 to 106. Looked like an easy win for the Bulls, but were there any hidden gems in this game?
Yeah, I'd say so. Zach LaVine led the Bulls with 32 points. He's become such a consistent scorer. Seems like he can create his own shot whenever he needs to.
Yeah, he's definitely got that scoring touch. The Raptors just couldn't keep up. They struggled on offense all night, like they couldn't figure out the Bulls' defense. What was the key to the Bulls' success on defense?
Well, it was a team effort. They were swarming the ball, closing out on shooters, forcing the Raptors to take tough contested shots. The Raptors had 18 turnovers, and the Bulls turned those into 24 points.
So it wasn't just LaVine's scoring, it was that defensive energy that really set the tone.
Exactly. And DeMar DeRozan had a good game too, 27 points and 6 assists. He's a skilled playmaker, really makes everyone around him better.
Yeah, he's a valuable asset to the team. We've seen some amazing individual performances tonight. But I'm curious, were there any coaching decisions or tactical adjustments that you thought were interesting? Sometimes it feels like the coaches are playing chess out there.
Oh, yeah, for sure. In that Celtics-Pelicans game, remember when the Celtics switched to a zone defense late in the fourth quarter? That was a smart move by their coach.
Oh, yeah, I remember thinking, what's going on here? It totally changed the flow of the game.
Yeah, the Pelicans didn't know how to handle it. A zone defense is designed to block passing lanes, force the offense to the perimeter, and just disrupt their rhythm. And it worked perfectly. The Pelicans started turning the ball over. The Celtics got some easy baskets in transition, and that pretty much sealed the deal.
It's incredible how one tactical decision can have such a big impact on the game. It's like the coach is another player out there.
Yeah, you could say that. A good coach can read the game, anticipate what the other team is going to do,
Yeah.
and make those split-second decisions that can change the whole momentum.
And speaking of standout players, besides the obvious ones like Booker, Tatum, Jokic, were there any under-the-radar guys who impressed you tonight?
Yeah. Keldon Johnson's performance for the Spurs was definitely eye-opening. He was aggressive, attacking the basket, making shots. It wasn't just the 28 points, it was how he got them. He looked confident and in control.
It's always exciting to see a young player like that step up and make a statement. It makes you wonder who's next. Who's going to be the next breakout star?
Yeah, that's one of the things that makes the NBA so great. There's always new talent coming up, new stories being written, keeps things fresh and exciting.
Definitely keeps you on the edge of your seat. Now, taking a step back and looking at the league as a whole, are there any big trends or storylines that you're seeing emerge from these games?
Well, one thing that's becoming more and more clear is the importance of three-point shooting. Teams that can shoot the three well have a huge advantage. Just look at the Suns, the Celtics, and the Nuggets tonight. They all have multiple guys who can hit those shots from beyond the arc.
Yeah, it feels like the game has changed. Like the three-pointer is the new mid-range jumper.
Exactly. And it's not just about making the shots. It's about spacing the floor, creating driving lanes for guys who can get to the basket. It forces the defense to make tough choices. And if you can punish them for leaving guys open, that's when you really start to see those big scoring nights.
So three-point shooting is huge, no doubt. But what about the other side of the ball? Besides scoring, is there anything else that's going to be crucial for teams as the season goes on?
Defense. Defense.
Yeah.
Defense. It might sound cliche, but it's true. Defense wins championships. Teams like the Bulls and the Celtics tonight, they showed us what tough, disciplined defense looks like.
That hard-nosed, in-your-face defense that can really disrupt an offense and create turnovers. It's not always pretty, but it gets the job done.
Exactly. And then there's something you can't really measure on a stat sheet. Team chemistry. Teams that play well together, trust each other, have that camaraderie. They're usually the ones that make it far in the playoffs.
Yeah, it's like they're playing for each other, not just for themselves. You can feel it when you watch them.
Exactly. It's the energy they bring, the way they communicate on the court, the willingness to sacrifice for the good of the team. It's the difference between good teams and great teams.
That's a great point. Now, I know it's still early in the season, but based on what you've seen so far, are there any teams that have surprised you, either positively or negatively?
Yeah. I'd say the Spurs are definitely exceeding expectations. They're young, but they play with a lot of energy, and they're well coached.
I like that. It's like they're flying under the radar, but they're quietly building something special.
And then you have a team like the Warriors, who haven't quite found their rhythm yet. They're obviously talented,
Yeah.
but something seems to be missing.
Yeah, like they haven't quite recaptured that magic they had in previous seasons. It'll be interesting to see how they adjust as the season goes on. We've talked a lot about the X's and O's. But what about the human element of the game? Were there any moments tonight that really stood out to you? Any stories that resonated on an emotional level?
You know, seeing a young player like Keldon Johnson have that breakout game for the Spurs, it just reminds you of the pure joy of the game. You can see it in his eyes, that passion, that hunger to prove himself. It's inspiring.
Yeah, you can't help but root for him. And then you have the veterans, the guys who've been around the league for a while. And when they have a big night, it's like a testament to their dedication. It shows they still have what it takes to compete at the highest level.
Yeah, exactly. And then you have those stories of players overcoming adversity, whether it's injuries or personal struggles. Their resilience is incredible.
It's a good reminder that behind all the stats and highlights, there are real people with real stories. That's what makes the NBA so captivating.
Absolutely. It's not just a game. It's a reflection of life with its ups and downs, its triumphs and setbacks. And that's why we connect with it on such a deep level.
Well said. I think we've covered a lot of ground tonight, but there's always more to explore. Join us next time as we continue to dive deep into the world of the NBA. Until then, keep watching, keep learning, and keep that passion for the game alive. There's always something new to discover. Good night, everyone.
It's like a walking highlight reel.
Yeah, the Raptors just seemed overwhelmed. They couldn't get anything going on offense, like they were completely shut down by the Bulls' defense. What made the Bulls so effective on that end of the court?
I mean, everyone contributed. They were all over the ball, closing out on shooters, forcing the Raptors into those tough shots. And the Raptors had 18 turnovers, and the Bulls scored 24 points off of those.
So it was more than just Levine. It was that defensive intensity that really set the tone for the whole game.
For sure. And DeMar DeRozan had a solid game, too, 27 points and 6 assists. He's such a skilled playmaker, really elevates the game of everyone around him.
Yeah, he's a key piece of that team. We've talked about some great individual performances tonight, but I'm also curious about the coaching side of things. Were there any coaching decisions or tactical adjustments that really stood out to you? It's like sometimes it feels like the coaches are out there playing chess.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like in that Celtics-Pelicans game, when the Celtics switched to that zone defense late in the fourth quarter, that was a really clever move by their coach.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. I was like, what are they doing? But it completely changed the momentum of the game.
Yeah, the Pelicans were totally thrown off. A zone defense is all about clogging up the passing lanes, forcing the offense out to the perimeter, and disrupting their flow. And it worked perfectly. The Pelicans started turning the ball over. The Celtics got some easy baskets in transition, and that was pretty much the end of it.
It's amazing how one little change like that can have such a big impact on the game. Like the coach is practically another player out there on the court.
In a way they are. A good coach has to be able to read the game,
Yeah.
anticipate the other team's moves, and make those quick decisions that can shift the momentum.
Absolutely. So we've talked about the big names like Booker and Tatum and Jokic, but were there any under-the-radar players who really impressed you tonight?
Keldon Johnson's performance for the Spurs was definitely a standout. He was so aggressive attacking the rim, hitting shots.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just the 28 points as the way he scored them. He looked so composed and confident.
Yeah, it's always exciting to see a young player like that have a breakout game. It makes you wonder who's next, who's going to be the next big star in the league.
Yeah, and that's what keeps the NBA so interesting. There's always new talent, emerging new stories being written. Keeps things fresh and unpredictable.
Keeps us coming back for more. So zooming out a bit and looking at the league as a whole, are there any major trends or storylines that you're seeing develop based on these games?
Well, one thing that's becoming increasingly obvious is the importance of three-point shooting. Teams that can shoot the three effectively have such a big advantage now. I mean, just look at the Suns, Celtics, and Nuggets tonight. They've all got multiple guys who can knock down those threes consistently.
Yeah, it feels like the game has evolved so much. Like the three-pointer has become the new mid-range jumper.
Exactly. And it's not even just about making the shots. It's about creating space on the court, opening up driving lanes for the guys who can attack the basket. It puts so much pressure on the defense. And if you can make them pay for leaving guys open, that's when you start to see those huge scoring nights.
So three-point shooting is crucial, no doubt. But what about on the other side of the ball? What are some other key factors that teams need to focus on as the season progresses?
Defense. Defense. Might sound cliche, but it's true. You can't win a championship without a strong defense. Teams like the Bulls and the Celtics tonight, they showed us what tough, disciplined defense looks like.
Yeah, that kind of in-your-face defense that can really disrupt an offense and force turnovers. It's not always flashy, but it's effective.
Exactly. And then there's something that you can't really quantify with stats. Team chemistry. Teams that have that connection, that trust that willingness to play for each other, those are the teams that tend to go far.
Yeah, you can tell when a team has that chemistry. It's like they're playing as one unit.
Yeah, exactly. It's the energy they bring, the way they communicate on the court, the willingness to sacrifice individual glory for the good of the team. That's what separates the good teams from the great teams.
That's a great point. Now, I know it's still early in the season, but are there any teams that have surprised you so far, either positively or negatively?
The Spurs are definitely exceeding expectations. They're young, but they play with so much energy and they're well coached.
I'm really liking what I'm seeing from them. It's like they're quietly putting together something special.
And then you have a team like the Warriors, who haven't quite found their groove yet. They're obviously a talented team,
Yeah.
but something's not clicking.
Yeah, it's like they haven't quite recaptured that magic they had in previous seasons. It'll be interesting to see if they can turn things around.
Yeah, for sure.
We've talked a lot about strategy and stats, but let's not forget about the human side of the game. Were there any moments tonight that really touched you emotionally? Any stories that resonated with you on a personal level?
Seeing Keldon Johnson have that breakout game for the Spurs, it was just a reminder of the pure joy of basketball. You could see it in his eyes, that passion, that drive to prove himself. It was really inspiring.
Yeah, those kinds of stories are what makes sports so special. And then you have the veterans, the guys who've been around the league for years. And when they have those big nights, it's like a testament to their dedication and longevity. It shows that they still have what it takes to compete at the highest level.
Absolutely. And then you have those stories of players overcoming adversity, whether it's injuries or personal struggles. Their resilience is truly remarkable.
It's a good reminder that behind all the stats and highlights, these are real people with real lives. And that's what makes the NBA so compelling.
Yeah. It's not just a game. It's a reflection of life, with
Yeah.
all its ups and downs, its triumphs and setbacks. And that's why we connect with it on such a deep level.
We've talked about individual players and coaching and league trends and even the human side of the game. But something I keep thinking about after watching these games is momentum. It's like this force out there on the court. One minute a team's struggling and the next they're unstoppable. Is there any way to measure that, or is it just a feeling?
It's a great question, and honestly, I think it's both. Like, there's definitely a mental aspect to momentum, that feeling of confidence and energy that can spread through a whole team. But you can also see it in how they're playing.
Hmm.
The ball movement gets smoother, the shots start falling, and on defense, they're everywhere, contesting every shot.
Yeah, it's like they're feeding off of each other's energy. One good play leads to another, and suddenly they're on a roll.
Right. And on the other hand, when a team's losing momentum, it can feel like this downward spiral. Missed shots, turnovers, defensive breakdowns. It all just snowballs.
And it can be so tough to break out of that once it starts. What can a team do to turn things around when they're in that kind of slump?
That's when leadership is so important, both from the players on the court and the coaching staff. You need someone to rally the team, boost their confidence, remind them what they're capable of. Sometimes all it takes is one big play, one spark to ignite a comeback.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thinking back to tonight's games, were there any moments where you could really feel that momentum shift?
Oh yeah, definitely. In that Celtics-Pelicans game, when the Celtics went to that zone defense, it completely changed the energy. The Pelicans had been controlling the pace, but then suddenly they were all out of sorts, turning the ball over. The Celtics took advantage, got some easy baskets, and the crowd went wild. You could just feel the momentum shifting to their side.
It was like a complete 180.
And that's what makes basketball so exciting. Those moments of unpredictable brilliance where everything can change in an instant.
Yeah, you never know what's going to happen next. So looking ahead, are there any teams that you think have that special something that could make them a real contender?
The Suns are definitely interesting. They've got a good mix of talent and experience, and they're playing with this confidence that's contagious. And don't count out the Celtics. They're young and hungry, and Tatum's playing like an MVP.
Yeah, they're definitely ones to watch. It's going to be exciting to see how these teams develop over the course of the season. So, as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one key takeaway you want to leave our listeners with?
I think tonight's games showed us that the NBA is constantly evolving. We've got the established stars, but we've also got young players making their mark. Coaches are trying new things. And there's a level of parity that makes every game unpredictable. Anything can happen in the NBA.
Well said. So, to everyone listening, keep watching, keep learning, and keep that passion for the game burning bright. There's always something new to discover in the NBA. Till next time, enjoy the journey.